I'm Autumn Lockett,
And this is Mitch Randall.
and you're listening to Good Faith Weekly.
Welcome to Good Faith Weekly. On this episode, Autumn and I are going to catch up after a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. We're going to talk about what's going on, the latest with COVID-19 and the omicron variant that has emerged. And we're also going to talk about Advent, as everyone around the world, at least those who are Christian, are looking forward to the coming of Christmas and the celebration of Jesus' birthday. And then later on in the pod, we're very fortunate that our very own colleague, Reverend Starlette Thomas of the Raceless Gospel Initiative, is interviewing the very Reverend Dr. Kelly Brown Douglas around the issue of race. And Dr. Douglas is the Dean of the Episcopal Divinity School at Union Theological Seminary. It's a wonderful conversation. So stay tuned. Hey, Autumn, guess what time of year it is?
Halloween.
No.
Thanksgiving?
No.
It's too early for Christmas. People keep telling me.
It is a little too early for Christmas. No, it's the time of year when nonprofits ask for money.
You know, Mitch, I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, it is an exciting time of year because even here at Good Faith Media, we need to, from time to time, ask our listeners and readers to help support this great effort of keeping this message alive.
Yeah, the voices of inclusive people of faith are tragically underrepresented, leaving many feeling alone. And then we layered in this global pandemic, which pushed all of us further into isolation. But Good Faith Media provides a space for our voices to unite and impact the world for good.
And our daily news and opinion pieces provide thoughtful reflection from spiritual and thoughtful leaders around the world.
Our Nurturing Faith Journal is a print magazine that circulates 6 times a year to churches and households nationwide, delivering thoughtful analysis, inspiring features, and Jesus-focused Bible study curriculum.
And if you like this podcast, Good Faith Weekly, make certain to subscribe to more exciting and challenging podcasts brought to you by the Good Faith Media Podcast Network. Gather around your device as GFM continues advocating for inclusion for all, justice for all, and freedom for all. You can find more information about this at goodfaithmedia.org/donate. Autumn, how was your Thanksgiving weekend?
You know, it was good. It was a lot of driving. It was
And so you went out of town for Thanksgiving.
I went out of state, Mitch. I crossed the Red River
Oh
and
my
went to
goodness.
see some Texans for Thanksgiving. Yeah, it was really good. We stayed with some sweet seminary friends and spent some time in Waco. We took our kids to see the Baylor Bears on Baylor's campus.
You
and
did.
yeah, so that was pretty exciting. They were doing tricks, and my 8-year-old son actually said the word "sickum."
Oh,
know. It
you're
was
not
a
raising those
moment.
kids right.
Yeah, it was really good. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was quiet. Both my boys are out of state. One going to school, one living out of California. But both of them flew back for the holiday. It was kind of strange because they didn't get back until Thanksgiving night. And so Missy and I had a quiet Thanksgiving morning. But when they arrived, we prepared and got ready for a Friday Thanksgiving. And it was grand. We had a really, really good time with them, catching up with what they're doing in their lives. And Missy prepared an incredible meal, just did a great job, as she always does. So I've got a question for you, because this could be very controversial and it could really cause problems in our friendship.
Oh, okay. All right. Are you gonna ask me if it's sweet or savory cornbread? Because I'm a savory girl.
Okay. No, I'm fine with that. I'm totally
Okay.
Well, there's 2 questions I have for you. The first one is a little bit more benign. Is it pecan pie or pecan pie?
Pecan.
Pecan.
Pecan. Pecan is something you go in when you can't hold it to the next gas station.
Thanks for that
Is
visual.
that appropriate to say on this podcast? I don't know.
No,
How do you
no.
say it?
You know, what's funny? Oh man, we're about to go down a rabbit hole, because I had an old minister tell me one time. He said, "Now, if you ever find yourself traveling out in West Texas," he said, "make sure you got a pecan with you, because there's no bathrooms out there late at night."
This is what I'm saying. There's not. No. A pecan. But you don't want that in a pie, Mitch.
That's right.
You want the little nut in your pie.
That's right. Okay, well, I'm glad we cleared that up. Here's the controversial question. Is it okay not to have turkey for your Thanksgiving meal? Because
Oh, absolutely.
here's
Yes.
here's my opinion. Turkey is severely overrated.
I get it. It is a trickier protein for sure because of the fat content. The volume that I have to cook for with my throngs of children, a turkey's better for me because I'd
I
have
get
to
it.
cook
Yeah.
two
Get it.
chickens,
Yeah, sure.
but especially if you have a smaller family, I think a well cooked chicken can do it as long as it's a whole chicken. I think you have to have a whole bird
We
at the
did have
holiday.
a whole chicken, and that's what we've done the last 2 years. We have abandoned the turkey and have embraced the chicken.
I love
Uh,
that.
yeah. So yeah, it's been nice, and it was one of my sons like last year during the pandemic when nobody was meeting together. It was just us, and he said, why do we do turkey every year? Can't we do something that we like? I was like, okay, what do you like?
Right?
And he said, I like chicken. I said, okay, we can do chicken. So,
Absolutely. Well, there's a reason they don't use turkey broth in a dressing. Use chicken broth. Like
ah,
it's just better.
it is. It really is. So, all right. Well, now that we got that out of the way,
All the important stuff.
that's right. Thanksgiving is now behind us, and I hope everybody listening to this podcast had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I also hope that you appreciated the little video that I sent out on Thanksgiving Day, reporting from the garage. Us at Good Faith Media wishing you a happy Thanksgiving from our garage to yours as we once again gather with our families, sharing everything that is great and grand about Thanksgiving. But now,
Yeah.
with that in our rearview mirror, we are knocking on the door of Advent. In fact, we had Advent 1 this last Sunday. So, Autumn, you grew up a good Baptist girl. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. Advent is something new for me. Was it new for you?
It wasn't. I grew up doing once I was a freshman, we started going to First Baptist Church of Clifton, which is just north on Highway 6
Mhm.
from Waco.
The
And
bastion of progressivism over there.
you know what? They actually did a really good
That's
job.
awesome. I love that.
And we had an Advent, and that was the first time I'd ever heard the word Advent as
Mhm.
a freshman in high school. But we were close enough to Truett at the time that they were sending us a fresh crop of music and youth ministers, and I thought it was beautiful. I remember lighting the candle with my family and reading the verses, and I really enjoyed sort of the high church
Mhm.
feel of Advent. What about you?
We didn't grow up with it. I don't remember the Advent wreath or candle being on the podium, or no, so not the podium, but on the stage area as a kid. I was introduced to it later on in life. It's become extremely important to me and my family as we lead into the Christmas season. But it's this season of expectation, and I saw on social media the other day that you and your family lit the Advent candle for the first Sunday this year. What does that mean to you when you and your children walk up to that Advent candle and you're lighting the first candle in expectation of the coming of the Christ child?
Yeah, it was really special. We were talking about it with our talk about a bastion of a church with Sherry, who runs all things in Norman, Oklahoma. And it was the first time our family had lit the Advent candle since there were just three of us,
Hmm.
since we just had Ava.
Yeah.
So it was the first time that our whole complete family lit, and the kids I feel like really sort of understood the decorum of the event. Sometimes you get kids near a stage and it's sort of crazy, but Ava read the responsive reading, and the whole church was, talking together in unison about the expectation of Jesus. And it was just a hope. It was the candle of hope, in
Mhm.
fact. And it was a nice time for us as a family and then also as a church family to set our feet on the path toward Jesus.
Yeah, there's something about the liturgy, and it's
Hmm.
more interactive. It's more relational as you experience this lighting of the Advent candles week by week, and the expectation, or I'm sorry, not the expectation, but the anticipation builds over the weeks, and it's just this beautiful. Uh, Forward thinking faith as we progress towards the coming of the Christ child. I love every element of it. And I'm so happy that we were part of that at North Haven in a local church context, and they've carried on that tradition. One of the most special moments for me and Missy has always been the Christmas Eve service. For over a decade, the boys, when they were little, all of us would go to light the Christ candle on Christmas Eve. The Christmas Eve service, the candlelight service, and it was just this is something that I miss profusely, but it meant
Mm-hmm.
so much to us. It meant so much to my boys. I think it really was a watershed moment for them and their faith, because it was faith that was touchable. It was tangible. It was something they could touch and they could smell and they could see. It just wasn't words. It had
Mm-hmm.
interaction to it.
And, Mitch, in a time when church feels probably the most divisive since the Civil War,
Mm-hmm.
it's so neat to think about all the congregations that were lighting that candle on
Mm-hmm.
the same Sunday and we're reading similar verses. And there was just a moment of like, okay, we're all in this together. Like could we act like it? Would be great.
Well, I hope so, because we're going to need it, Autumn, because lo and behold, there's another variant that has emerged around the world. The Omicron variant is causing a lot of stir among the medical community, governments. Some countries have already closed their borders to outside visitors. What are you hearing?
I'm hearing similar things. President Biden just put out a message that said it's time to be alert but not to panic.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good reminder. We've been through hard things and we can continue. We are much more educated today than we were at this time last year about COVID, how it spreads, what we can do to stay safe. My boys got their second dose of
Woohoo!
the child vaccine yesterday, and we are so excited and happy about that. I just think we just have to be able to roll with it. If we could all get together and, do the right thing for the good of all, it would be great. But you and I were talking on a meeting just before this that there are folks who are, just completely anti COVID, but by being anti COVID, they're super pro COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Well, I think President Biden was wise. That is something that we need to be concerned about, but don't need to panic at this point. I mean, the reality is, I think we're going to have to learn to live with COVID-19. Also, different variations of COVID-19, other COVID variants that are going to emerge in the upcoming years. It's just going to become a lot part of life, and we need to take precautions and be careful and stay healthy. Get vaccines when vaccines are available to us, and just be aware, because we need to take care of one another. And that's what it means to be a part of a global community, be part of the human race. To be part of God's children is to learn to take care of one another. And Jesus said it best: to love God is to love your neighbor, and to love your neighbor is to love God. And we need to do that in every sense of phrase. Well, I'm going to be taking off for vacation this week. And so we've recorded this opening a little earlier than usual. So we're not really certain what has unfolded over the week. If something
World
important,
peace.
if world peace breaks out, then Autumn and one of our colleagues will record it, a segment really quick before we introduce our guest for this particular episode. A couple of weeks ago, the Reverend Starlette Thomas and I went to Louisville, Kentucky, to the Festival of Faith 2021. And it was a wonderful experience. It's been going on for 2 decades now. I mean, just really remarkable speakers, organization, and the topics have been plentiful. But this particular year, they wanted to talk about race because of what had taken place in their city and the murder of Breonna Taylor. And so they had scholars and pastors from all over the country come in to Louisville to talk about the issue of race. And one of the participants and speakers was the very Reverend Dr. Kelly Brown Douglas. Dr. Brown Douglas is the Dean of the Episcopal Divinity School at Union Theological Seminary in New York, and she was just spectacular. Starlette Thomas sat down with the Reverend Kelly Brown Douglas a few weeks ago before the festival began, and just had a delightful conversation with her. So I hope that you enjoy this interview. It is worth a listen, and we're really excited that we're able to bring it to you. So, Autumn, with that, we're about to cut into the interview, but I just want to say I am going to miss everybody on my vacation, but I'm really not going to miss you a whole lot because we're going to have
Good
a
to
good
be
time.
away
It's
with
going to
your
be a getaway.
family.
So, yeah, so it's going to be the first time the four of us have had a vacation by ourselves ever. So we're really looking forward to that.
I'm Reverend Starlette Thomas, Director of the Raceless Gospel Initiative at Good Faith Media and host of the Raceless Gospel podcast. The Advent season is coming, and we're delivering a podcast. Jesus is Coming. It's an Advent podcast series from us at Good Faith Media. We'll drop 4 episodes, one for each Sunday of Advent. A season of preparation for a kingdom that is coming. Back up! Give everyone some space. There is plenty good room. Come one, come all, to Jesus. Jesus is Coming, an Advent podcast series by me, Reverend Starlette Thomas. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Learn more at goodfaithmedia.org. Making the announcement.
Great.
Canon theologian at the National Cathedral, Dean of Episcopal Divinity School at Union Theological Seminary in New York City, and author of Resurrection Hope, A Future Where Black Lives Matter, I am joined by the very Reverend Dr. Kelly Brown Douglas. Welcome, Dean Douglas.
Wow, it's so good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your time and the gifts that you come bearing. You're speaking at this year's Festival of Faiths on racial reckoning and the history of racialized violence in America. So my first question is this. The church in North America continues to segregate on Sunday mornings. The mixture of faith and race both inform and malform Americanized Christianity. Why are theological conversations about race essential to our understanding and even our practice of faith?
Yeah. Again, thanks for having me. And what a great question, because let me begin with the way you phrase the question, that faith informs and malforms our concerns about race and the way in which races become such a central issue of what it means in this country, even to be an American or not, right? And so when we talk about the democracy of this country, when we talk about how we see ourselves as a nation, there is no way to not talk about race. As Toni Morrison once said, to say American is to speak of race. So now when we say that, we also have to begin to understand deeply the way in which religion has been a factor in, I'm going to use your words, informing and malforming our whole understanding of race. That is the way in which religion has been used to legitimate sort of white supremacist anti-Blackness in this country from the inception of this country. And on the other hand, we have also seen instances where religion has informed us and thus pushed us toward this greater understanding of who we can be beyond these toxic constructs of race. So when you ask why do we have to have the theological concern when it comes to these issues of race, et cetera. Well, here's the thing, as you know, and I take this phrase from an 11th century theologian who said that theology is faith seeking understanding. So we need to understand the ways in which our faith have played a role, not only in moving people in this toward freedom, this nation toward its better angels, if you will, but the way in which our faith has also acted as a barrier between us and, let's say, the just future that God has promised for us all. And so theology, it helps us to do that because we began to take seriously the role that our faith played and put questions to our faith. And as we put those questions to our faith, what we're really asking ourselves is, what does it mean to believe in a God that we claim to be just, a God that we claim to be loving, et cetera, in relationship to these matters of the race and the way in which we have conducted ourselves as religious people in trying to resolve these matters of race.
My gosh, which leads me into the second question. In your estimation, what does America need to reckon with regarding the socio-political construct of race? And what is the church's role in this work?
See, I'm so glad you keep asking these easy questions, Reverend Thomas. But yeah, it's what's so good, and as you use that word reckoning, is that the nation claims to be reckoning, coming to this moment of racial reckoning. This is not the first moment in this country that we have come to this place of racial reckoning, and we are still at a point of racial reckoning. And so what this nation must tell the truth about, must confront, is the way in which anti-Black white supremacy is at the very foundation of this nation. That in this nation's earliest beginnings, when the Pilgrims and Puritans, if you will, those early founders who landed upon this land that was already inhabited by First Nations people and exploited, those people stole the land. When they landed with the notion and the ideal that this nation was to be, yes, an exceptional nation, the city on the hill, but that American exceptionalism was always associated with Anglo-Saxon exceptionalism. And until this nation reckons with that, then we will not begin to even understand how we can get to that place of that vision that it somehow briefly gave birth to, where we would be a nation where there would be freedom and justice for all. So that's what this nation needs to reckon with. And of course, we know that our nation is running from the truth of that reality.
Come on and preach, Dean. It took all I had not to interrupt with that.
Well, you can interrupt.
Woo! Preaching, your newest book, Resurrection Hope, a future where Black Lives Matter, is a reflective response to your son's well-informed question of theodicy. From I am a man to Black Lives Matter, African Americans have been protesting their dehumanization, social and physical death. What does this say about our present reality? And what can we hope for in the future?
Yeah, and I like that you, of course, point out that this book, Resurrection Hope, really was a culmination of conversations with my son. Starting when he was 27, he's now 28, but 27, 28, 6 foot tall, lock wearing Black man who continued to ask me, particularly as we moved through the 4 years that were of making America great again, continued to ask me if I ever really thought Black lives would matter in this nation, right? That is a theological question. Right? Because we have to ask, embedded in that question is trying to understand the justice of God. And I tell you, it took me on a journey to try to understand that. And we hear the question, how long, oh Lord, how long? And that theodicy question, right? If God's so just and God can do anything, then why this evil, sinful reality that is white supremacist, anti-Blackness, that is not benign? It's taking Black lives every day. And of course, these COVID realities, again, is a reflection of the way in which this white supremacist anti-Blackness came together to let Black people die. And so even as we know that our nation is complacent in letting Black people die, the question became, is God? right, is God. And so it was a journey of trying to find that hope, that resurrection hope, if you will, that did not allow me or has not allowed our people to get steeped in that pit of despair that suggests that it doesn't matter. And so, you know, the answer to your question, and to my son's question, will there be a future where Black lives will matter? I often say, as long as there's a God, there will be. I think of those people whom I talk about in the book, and I often say that as bad as things are, and in as much as our nation has yet to face the reality of who it really is, that it's been worse, and we come from a people who were enslaved, and there were people who were born into slavery, right, who died into slavery, who never ever ever breathed a free breath, and in fact never ever dreamt that they would breathe a free breath, right? Yet here's the thing: they fought for freedom anyhow. They fought for freedom anyhow because they believed in the freedom that was the justice of God. And because they fought for that freedom, you and I are sitting here having this conversation, right? They are our history as a Black people in this nation, is the response to the theodicy question you raised earlier, and is in so many respects the response to my son's questions about whether or not Black lives will ever matter. So
the way I leaned into my computer screen as you were speaking, I have been pulled in. Thank you so much, Dean Douglas, for your time. I am deeply grateful. The book drops today,
I am
y'all.
grateful. Yes, I'm grateful for that. Thank you so much, and
God's
look forward
peace.
to other conversations and meeting you in person.
Yes, Dean Douglas, God peace and good journey to you.
And to you. Bye now.
Well, we want to thank Starlette Thomas and the Reverend Dr. Kelly Brown Douglas for their conversation. We've learned so much from them and all the participants in the Festival of Faith 2021. It's been a great week. We hope that you're having a great week as Advent is now upon us. We're going to be back with somewhat of a normal show next week as we'll be back in studio. But until then, keep living good faith.